What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? It finally happened. It finally happened. Diddy was arrested tonight. I'm sure everybody's seen the news. We've got various YouTube lives going. Everybody wants to get on. It's big news. I mean, everybody was waiting for this, I mean, not everybody who gets their house raided by the feds does get charged with a crime, but I think everyone did expect that Diddy was going to get charged with a crime. It's just before he actually gets charged with a crime, it's a little irresponsible to just speculate. But when you get your house raided by the feds like he did a few months ago, two houses like that, and remember, he could have had a lot of other search warrants could have been served back then too. The houses were the most visible because there are all these armed federal agents everywhere, and there was footage of it. But they very likely served search warrants for his computers, phone records, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that they can do that's invisible that we don't see. So tomorrow's the big day. Really, we don't have a lot of information tonight, other than I think people might have seen that TMZ's reporting that the plan was to arrest him tomorrow, because I was kind of struck that they released the statement saying, hey, he actually traveled to New York and was ready to turn himself in. Because I'm like, wow, I can't, But they basically saying there, yeah, he knew charges were coming, but TMZ doesn't have the reason why. But they're saying, something happened that made the feds want to trigger it early tonight and get him tonight instead of tomorrow. So I think he's being. He should be in court tomorrow, but because I'm still uploading it. My computer, I just uploaded the better internet upgraded to the better internet, and it still takes forever. My upload speeds are low, but I've got a clip from Live Now from Fox. I went on there and talked about it, and I want to share that with you guys. But somebody says I'm being cited everywhere. That's awesome. Good. And but as soon the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York released a statement saying they're going to move to unseal the indictment, because it's actually a judge who has to authorize the unsealing. But I'm sure that'll happen tomorrow morning. Just a warning, it might actually be a little disappointing when they unseal the indictment, in that there might not be a lot of details. There might be a lot of details, but there also might not be, because if it's an indictment, they don't really have to get into all the details that you would see in a complaint or an affidavit. Sometimes they do. There might be a lot in there, but we don't really have. We don't really know until it's out. So again, okay, here's the video. It's almost uploaded. I'm going to play it for you guys. Really, I need to go to bed. I wasn't going to do much on this, but I think when the Danielle, thank you for tuning in. But I think when the affidavit's out, I'll try to cite it tomorrow. But I got to get up super early to stream the Young Thug trial too, which is kind of boring right now because they just have police witnesses. But yeah, it's probably tomorrow afternoon he's going to be having to appear before a magistrate judge in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. There's two main federal courthouses there. I actually was there, saw them both when I covered Michael Avenatti's trial. But it's not on calendar, but it's whoever's the duty magistrate judge. Is the magistrates take turns handling the arrests from the night before. It's somebody's day to do the first appearances for everybody. So they'll get the first appearances for any federal arrests in the Southern District that happened last night, including Sean Combs. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing sketches from there. Jane Rosenberg is the famous sketch artist from New York who covers all that stuff. So we're going to be seeing all that. So he's definitely spending the night in jail. He could get released tomorrow, or they could move for a bail hearing. His lawyers could, and do a more formal presentation about setting up some kind of bail or bond hearing. I don't know. Somebody asked if he's going to make bail, and that's the big question. It's going to be up to the magistrate judge tomorrow when he appears before the magistrate, whoever the magistrate is, about what happens. Is he being detained pending a bail hearing? Is she going to impose he or she going to impose bond conditions right then? There's a lot to be known. I kind of I don't know though, because it's pretty serious charges, but his lawyers seem like they're preparing to try to get him out on bail. The way they're talking about how he's cooperating, because somebody told me, they're like, oh, he's a moron for not fleeing the country. He has so much money. But I mean, Yeah, it sounds like with everything, he's going to try to make the case that he's not a flight risk, and just because he has a ton of money in a jet, that is not grounds to deem him a flight risk. Like, would they be discriminating against him because he's rich? I don't know. You can imagine all the arguments his lawyers are going to make. So I definitely don't think it's guaranteed that he's going to be in custody pre-trial. I think he could get some kind of bail arranged, but it's gonna take a little bit to get that set up. Although he could be out tomorrow afternoon on some kind of bail thing. It's hard to know, but we're going to know a lot tomorrow, especially when the indictment comes out. I think it'll just have initials about who the victims are and everything. Make my appearance for you guys, and then I do think I'm going to turn in because I'm kind of late over here. And witness, yeah, thank you for tuning in. I kind of set this up on a whim, but I'll try to do something tomorrow when the indictment comes out. I'm going to definitely send something out to my mailing list, but I'm not sure if I can go live twice because my StreamYard tomorrow is going to be occupied at like 6 a.m. with the Young Thug trial, and that is going to go all day. And I don't think I can double up and do another live when that's going on, but we'll see.
Statement by Diddy's attorney here. Let's bring into the conversation someone who helped us make sense of this story when it was breaking way back when, in late March of this year. That's legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff. She joins me. Meghann, good to see you here. Boy, what a development. I don't know if you can say this is tying a bow on this story. Maybe it's just beginning right now, Meghann. But I wanted to ask you first. Let's just go to the nuts and bolts of this. Is Diddy spending the night in jail in Manhattan?
Yes, he is. He won't have a chance to get out until he appears before a magistrate judge, which should be tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon in Manhattan. He should appear before a magistrate judge who's got the first appearance calendar and is hearing other first appearances for recently arrested defendants. But he could be further detained then, or his attorneys could request a bail hearing too, which is likely. But it is possible that he gets some kind of release conditions tomorrow. But if he was arrested tonight, he's definitely not going to get out until he appears before a judge tomorrow.
And presumably we can expect a mugshot, I would imagine. Meghann, you heard
possibly, although because it's a federal custody thing, they typically, at least in my experience, federal authorities don't release mugshots. But given the high-profile nature of this, I think it's likely that one could get leaked if it doesn't get released publicly.
So Diddy's team knew this was coming. I mean, that was said as much in the statement here. What did you make of that? His lawyer said he's been fully cooperative with this investigation since the raids took place in late March at his homes there in the Holmby Hills section of Beverly Hills and in Miami. So they were prepared for this, so much so they relocated there to New York just last week. Does that tell you that he is being cooperative?
Yeah, I was surprised that they'd volunteered, that he saw this coming. He knew he was going to be charged with crimes. But the cooperative nature of it, I don't think he was in the position to perhaps benefit much from his cooperation, because I think the cooperation usually benefits people who have somebody higher than them that they can point to, and that the federal authorities would like to prosecute too. And I think in Diddy's situation, they saw him as the big fish. So some people have kind of observe that cooperating with federal authorities who are seeking to charge you with a crime typically does not result in you not getting charged with a crime. But, like his lawyer said, we should wait and see what the facts are. But I think we're going to see a lot more tomorrow morning when they actually unseal the indictment. And the way the grand jury indictment process works, at least in my experience covering federal courts and kind of the way I was brought up by other journalists and other editors who've covered federal courts, that the grand jury system is a pretty tight charging system. And once that's in place in the grand jury proceedings that have gone on, now that there's an indictment, it can be hard to just get that dismissed or just beat those charges.
Yeah, let's just talk about the jurisdiction briefly, because you intimated this in March in our conversations here on the air, and you found it interesting, so to speak, that this was all emanating at the time, and we were reading the tea leaves from the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. I want to correct the record here because I said earlier that judges in New York signed off on the warrants in California and Florida. Local judges did that in California and Florida here. What did we know then that gave you the information that this was coming from New York, and why this jurisdiction? What happened here, allegedly, in New York?
I remember there had been reports that it was the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, or the Homeland Security Division, was taking the lead on that, and that they had sought the search warrants in California and Miami, which would have gone to federal judges in both Miami and Los Angeles to actually authorize that, because they're the ones who oversee those jurisdictions. But it was always said to be a Southern District of New York case, and that is where, of course, the bulk of his lawsuits are. The Cassie lawsuit, before that got settled so quick, that was in the Southern District of New York. And then remember, when this first broke, the news about Cassie's lawsuit really exploded onto the scene. There was a leak within New York Police Department that there was some kind of criminal investigation. So and they, of course, publicly refuted that and said there isn't. But the rumors and then the news about any kind of criminal investigation has always been centered in New York, while I think the investigation has obviously extended to Los Angeles and beyond.
But Meghann, do we know what the charges are going to be? I mean, we knew at the time that this was related to a federal sex trafficking investigation. Any idea what these charges could be?
We aren't going to know until the indictment actually is unsealed, but I would imagine we could see some charges in, reflecting the activity that they're investigating. And this is, of course, a court that has, or a prosecutor's office that has experience with sex trafficking cases. And remember, Sean Combs even went so far as to hire an attorney who has specific experience with sex trafficking cases in the Southern District of New York. He hired an experienced attorney who, one of her many cases is the Ghislaine Maxwell case, who was, of course, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator,
right,
in that.
So, Meghann, I wanted to ask too, I guess, what came first? These numerous lawsuits from various women against Diddy, and then did those precipitate this federal investigation, or are they linked? Should we look at them distinct and separately, or in a vacuum, or are they one and the same, do you think? Or is it too early to tell?
I think from all the reporting that we've seen, we can definitely say that they're linked, because we've heard that there's definitely an overlap between the civil allegations. The women who have made allegations against him in lawsuits have also been interviewed by, have testified before the grand jury and been interviewed by investigators. So there's definitely some overlap. I don't think they're one and the same, but also a lot remains to be seen about how much overlap is there between the allegations in the civil cases, which are, very voluminous, and what is he actually going to be charged with, and what actually made the indictment. I think there's a lot that remains to be seen there.
Okay, so you just saw some video of Diddy in a cap and gown there, which I thought was telling, because Howard University cut ties with him. And yes, our viewers will remember that really, really disturbing surveillance video from that hotel in Los Angeles, in the hallway near the elevator, where he was physically abusive to his girlfriend at the time, Cassie. That was a really difficult video to watch. It was quite triggering here. But since then, the onslaught against Diddy, when it comes to just his reputation, the public relations campaign against him, the volume of accusers, how do you come back from that in this business, in the music industry, entertainment industry writ large? Or has he kissed that all goodbye after this today, do you think?
I think it's, it's safe to objectively say he has kissed that all goodbye at this point. I mean, the civil cases, I think it was very difficult for him to come back from. But until there was a grand jury indictment, it was a question of, not everyone who gets their house raided in a criminal investigation by federal authorities does end up getting indicted. I think it was always likely that this would result in indictment, but until he was indicted, we just didn't know. Now that the indictment is in place, it's extremely difficult to get that dismissed. There would have to be some kind of major legal flaw, some kind of withholding of evidence that is discovered later on, something drastic like that, or he would have to take this before a jury and get an acquittal, which I think if you look at the history of these cases, that is very difficult to do on its face. But I would kind of predict that his team is going to go for the latter. I think they're going to try for the first and end up having to hope for the latter.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we'll see. It's a long process, so this could be, maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, it is a long process. But I mean, Meghann, you remember how graphic the details that were spelled out in Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well for what could be in this indictment when it's unsealed tomorrow, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you just think about, if we have that peek at the evidence, what else is the evidence? And like I just said, when his biggest option is, well, can you take this before a jury and get an acquittal? If you just look at the nature of the charges and then just look at the minimal evidence that the public has seen, it just looks like it's in a tough situation for him. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more. And he's really in for the fight of his life right now.
All right, Meghann Cuniff, we're going to leave it at that. Thanks so much for hopping on tonight during this breaking story. And I think we're going to be talking about this a lot in the next couple of days, Meghann.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, in the meantime here, I hope you found that informative. Wanted to make sure we got that in. That's a huge story that was breaking at this time just tonight here. But let's take a quick commercial break. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
Hi. So that was, I think, a pretty good summary of what we know right now, which isn't much. But one thing I would have, if I could go back and add to that discussion, would be, it's going to be really interesting to see what role Cassie plays in the indictment. If she's a victim, or if she's going to be a witness, or what. Or both. I mean, obviously victims can be witnesses, but they could, are they going to build this whole case around her as a witness, or is she just going to be one of many victims in there? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I've talked with attorneys, and I saw he posts a lot on Instagram, but he represents Kodak Black and some other rappers, but he always shares his opinions on high profile cases. And he was saying when the Cassie video was released that he thinks it was her team leaking it, and it indicates that she didn't yet have immunity in the whole case, and that this must be her team's way of kind of trying to pressure prosecutors into giving her some kind of immunity deal. And I thought that was a pretty good take. And other attorneys I've seen other attorneys say the same thing, because she was with him for so long that, I mean, that video is so terrible that but her statement was like, oh, it turned me into somebody I didn't recognize. I mean, it kind of indicated that maybe the feds were going to try to pull like a Ghislaine Maxwell with her, or they were threatening her or something, with charges or something like that. But we haven't seen anything like that. So because I think that video was a good taste of just how screwed he is. I saw someone say here, yeah, iMac music. Thank you for all your support too, iMac. I see your messages and everything. But yeah, 99 conviction rate feds. Diddy is done. Yeah, I mean, the idea that he's going to be able to get out of this, he's pretty screwed. I think he does probably have a good chance at getting some kind of bail. Like he could get out pre-trial, but the idea that he's going to be able to take this to trial and like get an acquittal, especially when you see that video of Cassie. I mean, if that's just a tip of the iceberg of the evidence that's here, I mean, imagine all the other stuff that they could have on that. But the idea that when that is a piece of evidence that, you could take this to a jury and, oh, he's a nice guy, he's just, misunderstood or something. I mean, come on, pretty heinous stuff. So, like I said, tomorrow morning they're going to release the indictment. But in terms of the 99% conviction rate, yeah, I first covered federal court up in Spokane, Washington, when I worked for the Spokesman Review. It's the Eastern District of Washington, but also the District of Idaho are the federal courts up there. And the federal courthouse in Spokane is right across the street from the courthouse. But actually, I covered a lot of cases in District of Idaho. And my editor, who is pretty experienced in courts, would kind of told me, and some other reporters told me that, when the feds, the way they secure these indictments and the grand jury process and the testimony that they take to secure these indictments, once they get these indictments, you're just pretty much screwed. Like, I mean, like somebody says, the conviction rate is 99% at trial. Although I have seen some acquittals. There was an acquittal up in the District of Idaho. This guy was charged with growing weed. It was a big marijuana distribution conspiracy case. And he hired this flashy lawyer from Las Vegas, Gavin DeGrasso. He'd represented O.J. Simpson in some of his Vegas stuff. So he's like this hotshot lawyer coming up to, Podunk, Idaho to free this guy. And he actually got him acquitted at a jury trial. I didn't watch the trial. I just covered the acquittal. But as the guy was leaving the courtroom, after he'd been acquitted, he got arrested on new federal charges of plotting to kill the witnesses in the case, which when you look at all the evidence, he was kind of blatantly doing. He'd hired a hitman and was trying to get him to kill all the witnesses. So he ends up getting acquitted in this marijuana case, the case that got him in trouble in the first place. But he ends up going to prison on federal witness tampering or, murder for hire charges or something like that. So the feds always get you in the end. Although when I always talk about how, this guy's done, et cetera, Nancy from Rolling Stone will bring up the acquittal of Young Boy Never Broke Again. I did not cover that trial. I wish I had. But when he was acquitted in LA federal court of felon in possession of a firearm, she whenever I'm like, there's no way he could get acquitted. She's like, hey, I saw an acquittal in that case. And but it's pretty different charges. One thing to remember, felon in possession of a firearm is the bottom of the barrel of federal charges. So the prosecutors on that case, I think, were to Bush League Green from, right out of law school. So I don't yet know who the actual prosecutors are on the Diddy case, but I doubt they're just brand new kids. They're probably a lot more experienced. But acquittals do happen in federal court sometimes, but they're far and few between. So yeah, it's a long process too, or it could be. At least in LA federal court, you could go to trial. Well, maybe, just depends on how fast you want to go, but you could probably get to trial within a year or so. But I've heard that LA federal court would be considered a rocket docket on the East Coast, that they're slower on the East Coast. But if you just look at the high profile trials that happen, though, it won't be, if he goes to trial, it could be within the, 2 years or so, or who knows. But I think tomorrow is a big day, and that we're going to see the indictment, and he should be in court tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a brief court appearance, just first appearance style, or maybe he could waive that or something. I don't know. It's always bad, at least in my experience, that's what would happen in LA federal court, and it would be the same in New York. But if he's arrested, there's this thing called the Constitution that applies. He has to appear before a judge within 24 hours. I think it would be possible for his lawyers to waive that, but I doubt they would do that. I don't even know if it's possible, but why would they? Because they're going to be trying to get him out tomorrow. So I think he's definitely going to be in court. Fortunately, there's no cameras in court, but keep an eye out for all the sketches from it and everything. So anyway, I got to turn in, but thank you guys so much. I will try to go. Yeah, give me a like. I kind of did this on the whim, but check out my channel for all the young thug stuff, and subscribe to legalaffairsandtrials.com. That's my Substack, because I haven't sent anything out yet, but tomorrow when the indictment comes out, I'll send out a link to it and everything, so everybody has the full thing. And tomorrow morning they're supposed to start at 8:45 in the Young Thug trial, and they didn't this morning, and the judge was getting on them about being late, oh, you guys need to be here, so gotta get up. And that's 5:45 in LA my time, so gotta get up and get the stream going. And like I said earlier, I don't think I can stream two things at the same time, but maybe after this ends, after the Young Thug trial ends, maybe I'll go live tomorrow. But definitely subscribe to my Substack. I think that's what I'm going to focus on tomorrow, is just putting together a all-encompassing, here's everything we know article. And I'll probably go live again on Fox Live now and just upload that and have that serve as my talk. But thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night. See you guys later.